Na na na, na 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 na. It's the England episode at long last, the one we've all been waiting for, and it is the ninth episode of our Euro 2024 preview series. Joined by Tops, joined by Charles Davey, the honest Scotsman, as we'll get into. But we cut up what our predicted lineup will be for the Euros for England. It's covering 2 episodes, so this is part 1. Stay tuned for part 2 by liking and subscribing. Peace. Hi, it's Harry with Tops and Charles, the honorary Scotsman, not so welcome today because it's all about the England.
England. Yeah.
Come on, England.
I can get behind it. It's okay because I know there'll be a glorious failure at some stage. But no, I'm all for it. It's a good-looking squad. Let's go.
Okay, so the squad is just out. We're going to go through it from top to bottom. There's going to be a few other talking points along the way. So first off, if I do the honours and go keeping position, what do we think about this one?
It's Pickford all day long, isn't it?
Yeah, but what do we think about the depth of keepers? I mean, in terms of the other options, what do we make of Ramsdale? Hasn't played a minute of football for most of the season. Henderson, not so confident on him either. Trafford's Burnley's backup keeper. I think Pickford will be all right to stay fit throughout the tournament, though.
Yeah, I don't think. I think the keeper situation is England's biggest weakness because there's been no one else to challenge Pickford for the last, God knows what, 5 years. He's established himself as a number one. He's basically kept Everton, I think, in the league this year with some superb performances. So I think when it comes to big game experience, he's been England's goalie when we've had the most successful period in most of our lifetime. So I don't think you can look beyond him.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of an odd one, isn't it? With Nick Pope having got injured, he was possibly the closest you'd get to getting regular first-team football at a high club in the Premier League. He could have put pressure on Pickford, but his injuries really hit England. And if I look at it, I'm a little bit surprised by how that fourth selection has happened of James Trafford, especially after him getting dropped at Burnley. He's clearly got potential. I remember seeing him very early on in the season. I thought he was quite confident for his age. Dean Henderson, he's been in and about. I think he was maybe predicted at having a bigger career than he has had. The fact he's only had half a season of football this year and half a season last year at Palace and Forest respectively, it's a semi-odd choice again. Ramsdale, I think he's great on the plane. I don't think he's going to get a minute on the pitch, but I think he's got a really good personality. He gets on well with a lot of the England squad. But Jordan Pickford, he's a very easy pick, I think, for everybody.
Literally is Pickford, easy pick. And I agree. I think he's sort of come up with this England squad, as Tops was saying, and he's been fairly reliable. Other than the friendly, he looks a bit shaky at times against, I think, the Belgium game, I think it was. He's been very reliable for us. He's been there in the key moments. And I think he's actually had a decent season with Everton as well. I think Everton would be in a worse position, maybe more in a relegation scrap than they were in the end, if it wasn't for Pickford's saves and goal. Because I think he's a bit mad, and I think that's what you need as a keeper. That's the old cliche.
One thing I did notice about Pickford, by the way, having seen him at the last day of the season in the Emirates Stadium, he has incredibly small clothing, as in quite like short shorts, short socks, weirdly tight top. I was quite surprised, didn't expect it. So look out for that in Euro 2024. Like reverse Greenish.
Okay. And then right back.
Where'd you start? I don't mean. I'm sure we're going to hear from Charles that Ben White should be in the England squad. However, he has made himself unavailable, as Gareth Southgate said yesterday. I think it's Kyle Walker, isn't it? I think it's his last tournament in an England shirt anyway. And I think he's showing that he's still a top international football player. So for me, it's definitely Walker.
Yeah,
I think he's world class. Maybe not quite elite, but he's definitely world class. Charles, what are you going to say?
He's really secured that right back role internationally. I think there was a period where England were playing 3 at the back or debating how they did a 5, and it was always whether Kyle Walker would be a utility player. He could be a right back, but also a centre back. And actually, the success he's had at City, he's really kicked on, and he owns that right back position in a world where maybe 2 or 3 years ago we looked at Trent as being the future, and he's maybe been a bit exposed for some of his defending. I'd say Walker's getting better with age, and the winning mentality of winning league after league with City should put him in good stead. He's one of the rare players in this squad who I think has genuine experience and will settle the kind of rest of the defence as they go along. So yeah, it's definitely Kyle Walker for me as well. Although, having said that, Ben White, I think, should be in the squad. I think he's be a good long-term challenger. But for whatever reason, that has broken down between Southgate and White and the England squad. So Walker for me.
Like a fine Rioja, aging well over time. There goes Walker in the squad. Now the one that I'm a bit more worried about, in fact, I think the most worry that there is, and that's centre-back, because it looks like good old Harry Maguire. He's had a okay season for his standards. I think he's been a bit injury-prone, but when he's been in there, he's been as good as he's been in the last few years. But it is a worry, and I think the worry is that not just Maguire in the, if we do go for him, but what is the behind, because Lewis Dunk looked like he was all over the shop against in that friendly. I think it was the Belgian one again. He looked like he didn't know what was coming at him at times, and was really made to look amateurish. By all accounts, a decent player for Brighton, but just when it comes to that standard, that level, that jump up, just doesn't cut the mustard for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think the international step up for Dunk is shown that had he made the jump to a bigger club than Brighton, I mean, playing European football maybe 3 or 4 years ago, you could argue that he may be a far better player. However, he stayed loyal to Brighton, and I think that's good. That's probably going to have cost him 10, 15 caps for England. I don't think Maguire gets anywhere near the starting lineup for me. I think it's whoever you're going to put in to partner John Stones. I think an outside shot for that could be Jared Branthwaite.
Yeah, poor old slabhead. I don't think any of us really fancy Maguire. Certainly not as a long-term prospect. Is definitely changed. I think people forget Euro 2020. I don't know if you can cast your mind back 4 years. England didn't concede until very late into that tournament. So went through the whole group stage, not conceding at all against Czech Republic, Scotland, and who were the other side actually? Croatia, wasn't it? They then didn't concede against Germany. They didn't concede against Ukraine, and it was only in the semis they conceded against Denmark.
That's pretty fit, wasn't it?
And then they conceded, obviously, in the final against Italy, but no shame in that. So I think this defence, there is a perception that defence is the weakness of England, but actually they seem to be producing okay metrics or kind of outputs. But for me, I was really impressed by how Jared Branthwaite ended the season. I think with Pickford in goal and the Everton connection, there is potentially a link up there, and you blood him in for this tournament. Alongside John Stones, I guess. I think John Stones is a cut above. I was surprised at how many international caps John Stones has, because it feels like he's always injured, but I think he's late 70s of caps, which is fantastic. So I definitely have John Stones on the team sheet, and I think I'd probably give the nod to Branthwaite.
Okay, I'm gonna be. I honestly would have said Maguire just because Branthwaite hasn't been blooded in, but I think he's a top player, and I'm happy to be overruled on that one, especially given how Maguire's looked over the whole totality of the last few years. It's not a confident pick. And yeah, I didn't really consider the Branthwaite and Pickford connection. So I think those two are locked in. Stones and Branthwaite. Next up, I think we're a bit fucked here, to be honest. I'm not going to lie. Left back.
You've got a 10% fit Luke Shaw, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it and I was like, oh God, do we actually have a? Because I was like thinking, Shaw hasn't played for us recently, but it sounds like he has. Have I just forgotten something? And it's no, we're relying on a 10% Luke Shaw, and then the alternatives are Joe Gomez as a makeshift left back and Kieran Trippier, which I personally am going to put forward as my pick, because I think he's had a mixed bag of a season. He started well, and then he had a big dip in form at one point, and you'd want him on his preferred side, but obviously he's never going to get past.
Yeah,
he has got great delivery of a ball, but yeah, he's not my favourite choice.
I think for me it'd be Gomez. I think he's had a far better second half of the season. I think that's what you have to look at when you're looking at who is in form now, who is playing well, who's confident. I think for me it's got to be Gomez. Just on that basis, I mean, we're not going to have any attacking output down that side. I mean, thankfully, when we get to the forwards, I don't think that'll be an issue. But as far as shutting up shop, who's got the legs at international level to play against? And if we do go deep into the tournament, and you are coming up against some of the elite forwards, you're going to have someone with legs that is able to defend. And don't think Kieran Trippier playing left back is the one that you're going to want up against tricky attacking players.
It's this is one of these rare moments where, as a Scotland fan, we have a much better set of left backs than England. It's very rare. Any position can be chosen for that, but
You have a better left back
well,
in Robertson.
I don't. Kieran Tierney, I think would get.
No,
I think Hickey, if he wasn't injured, and Robertson all have a shout. But if I look at what England have available, I'm going to put something out there that's maybe a bit rogue, but I think it will pay off. And I would play Trent Alexander-Arnold on the left as a very attacking left back. And with that in mind, I'd have quite defensive midfield just in front of those back four. But I think I wouldn't want to put Trippier there. Joe Gomez, maybe he can get away with it, but he's never struck me as being the best left back. I think the fact he's had to kind of come into a Liverpool side and play that role a little bit is probably one of the reasons why Liverpool didn't win the league. So I'd actually put Trent Alexander-Arnold up there, and I would hope that the experiment worked. But I would say there is an education piece here for Southgate and England setup, which is if you don't give players a chance throughout qualifying and throughout the Nations League, you open yourself to this opportunity where we don't really know who can play left back. The last person I know who played out of position who did okay was Bukayo Saka at Arsenal, but I would hate to see him at left back for England.
Yeah, I guess you look back to the World Cup in Russia when England got to the semi-finals playing Ashley Young at left back too, to show that I know that he did adapt that role as a fullback, but at that point in his career, I think he'd just gone over to Inter Milan, or he was about to go from United to Inter Milan, and we managed to get to the semi-finals with a makeshift left back as well then. So maybe it's something that Southgate doesn't see as an issue with the way that he wants to play.
I'm gonna lean if I've got the deciding pick because I think we've ruled out Trippier. I'm gonna lean towards Joe Gomez just because I think from an England perspective, Alexander-Arnold, we've got such an attacking team that we'll get into, and I just think on that left side, if it's Foden, if it's I'm trying to think who else we'd play there. But if we played who else we got if Foden played in the middle? Who would be left? But it would be an attacking player.
For me personally, I would bring Declan Rice back on that kind of left the centre mid to kind of cover for Alexander-Arnold going up top. But I'll leave it up to
and
you.
for you,
I'm
Tops,
perfectly happy with Gomez.
who's be your left forward in that position, or left midfielder in the position?
I don't know. I think we're gonna butt heads a little bit here. For me, on the left, I'm very much swaying towards having Anthony Gordon start. So he's not going to do any defending for you, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I'm trying to get to is when we get into that, I think anyone that we've got in that defense forward position isn't going to track back that much. It's an attacking array of riches. And I think for that reason,
there's no one. You could even argue Saka is probably the best defensive forward that we've got, I'd say, and I certainly wouldn't want him being exposed at the back.
Yeah, I think that's a safe call. But I do really like the idea of Alexander-Arnold there. But anyway, midfield, I think can we? Well, actually, no. You know what? I want to get in the conversation about Declan Rice because and I know Charles, you're going to be very keen to talk about him.
Yeah.
I know what I said about the left back position, but I'm going to go out there with my controversial take, and I'm going to say Declan Rice is more important to England, more important than Foden and Kane. I think he's that important because I think he is the linchpin. I think he can pass pick a pass. He can bring the ball forward, but he's more the fact that he'll hold that team together and be a focal point for the midfield. And I think without him, it's almost like the spine of the team. And it's like if you don't have a spine, then there's nothing to connect the head to the legs. You just fall apart and it's all disjointed. So I think Declan Rice is the most important player for our side.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think he'd be one of the first names on the team sheet for me. There is something exceptional when you find a midfielder who can just adapt very quickly and get the game moving. And I think actually Jude Bellingham has started going in a bit more of an attacking position, but when he started out, he certainly had the ability to do a similar Rice role, that kind of box-to-box midfielder. And I think in Bellingham, and Rice. And if I'm honest, Foden as well. He's having a fantastic season. Maybe England have proved they can do it a little bit without Foden. Not they should have to, but I think if you have Bellingham and Rice in the team, and you put in someone like Foden, it is very hard to see another team getting the ball, if I'm honest, or being able to dictate play in a way that doesn't suit England. So for me, Rice super important, and not just for his playing ability as well. Actually, he's proven to be a very down to earth kind of character, both at West Ham and Arsenal. He's good captain material. I know he's not captain here, but he will definitely be a good calming presence at a big tournament.
Tops, what do you think of him? He's very Brand Southgate. He's got that maturity about him, and he is also a phenomenal player. But yeah, he's the complete package for me.
Yeah, I think you could probably argue for England, the only thing he's not done enough of is potentially score goals. But again, it's not what he's in the team for. And I think because he's going to be surrounded by one, if not the best, midfielder in the world in Bellingham. I think the complementary 1-2 there, if you are going to say Bellingham's going to play in midfield with him, is exactly what you've just said. No one's going to get the ball off them. Defensively, they're both absolutely class as well. And I think you're going to have literally two complete midfielders. And unlike years of England past where we've had no midfield, or we've had Scholes, Gerrard, and Lampard all at the same time, and you can only play two of them. I think it's probably the best complementary 1-2 you could have is those two.
And so, are we in agreement that Jude Bellingham would play alongside him? Because I think it is fair, because I think Foden has been so phenomenal for City in that cam role in the end of the season. So I think it does sort of make me feel a bit sad that Bellingham can't play that position for us as well. But obviously, you can't play two cams; it's too attacking. But
I would personally go with Rice and Trent. But I know that's left field, and I don't think that's going to be what we do.
Well, let's be honest. If we're not putting Trent at left back, do you find a place for him in the team?
He's got to play. He's another one of the best footballers we've got. So yeah. I think he's just a bit forgotten because he's not going to play right back for Southgate, and he's obviously. I know it was. I can't remember which team it was, but he played centre mid a few qualifying games in some games you'd expect to win as England. Therefore, leaving him only with minimal experience. He's not played. I don't think for Liverpool at all.
Yeah, don't hate that.
Yeah, I think that's fair in terms of the perspective of Trent Alexander-Arnold. I was just the only thing is I feel like there isn't anyone that really brings the stability alongside Rice in terms of allowing Rice's attacking play, but I think that's something that we're going to have to sacrifice. I definitely think Kobe Mainoo is too soon for him to start. I think he should definitely be in the squad, of course. Conor Gallagher was a left field one that I thought, in terms of just maybe not the first 11 for the first team, but I think for one of those group stage games, I'd like to see something. I'd like to test it out and see how he could do, because I think he's very competitive, and I think he could play with discipline. He can add an attacking dimension as well. And then if you want to give Bellingham or Foden a rest for one of those group games, then you can play him there and then bench one of those two and then play Bellingham or Foden in the cam role and not lose their attacking dimension.
Yeah, I think Conor Gallagher is a perfect, squad player that you want in a competition in the tournament. I think he's able to play anywhere across the midfield, and I think that's going to be important, because if you do find that if someone's carrying a knock, or like you say, you want to give someone a rest and keep people fresh, I think he's absolutely perfect. I don't think he's a starter. And apart from that, I don't know if Curtis Jones and Adam Morton are going to make it anyway. So I think that 1-2 we've got there, Rice and Trent, is the two I'd go with.
So yeah, I'd sack off Curtis Jones and Adam Wharton as well, because I don't think we need Adam Wharton and Kobe Mainoo. I think that's too many young centre midfielders, and only one of them's really going to get minutes. I'd also sack off Kwanzaa, and I'd also sack off another. And I'm trying to think who else we have from the defenders. There was another defender I think I'd sack off as well.
I'd sack off Dunk personally, but
Dunk, yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, of course, Dunk. He needs to be dunked in the bin. Yeah, that's the reality for that one. He needs to be dunked off. Any final thoughts? How do we think of that as the first 7 players in the England squad? Does it think? I mean, obviously the players that are in the 4 point, the players above us and that we've got, they're the ones that really make the team. But that's not a bad base.
I don't think you're not going to concede many goals. That's for certain.
I think we've created a team that really favours the forward players we've got and really allows them to express themselves and provides cover for them. So
I
we
think
thought quite tactically about it.
one of the things that I kind of look at is, who are England up against in their group. So, in my opinion, I think England have, an okay group to kind of go against. So they've got Serbia, Denmark, and Slovenia. None of those sides, in my opinion, are going to win by counteracting England. They're all going to have to be teams that turn up with their own game plan, incredibly disciplined in it, and following instructions to a T. They're going to have to be well managed sides. And I say that because I think 11 on 11, I just don't think their players are as good as England's players. So if I look at this England team, I'm not sure how you play against it. So I'd fancy England to win all their games. I just think there's so much class that's in there. And we all know who the top four are going to be incredible as well. So I think this is a great looking squad for England. Great starting 11. It's a shame there isn't a more designated left back, but you have to go with what you go with.
Brilliant, and I'm happy to round off there. But if there's anyone more for any more?
No, I'm happy with that back seven.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, boys. And before we go, please like and subscribe because we've got part 2 coming along the way.